a beautiful day, isn't it? Well, not only is it a beautiful day to look at the mountains and some flowers, it's also a beautiful day to read. So, we finished chapter 24. In chapter 24, what happened? Well, what happened in 24 was a couple things. One, we had tea with Aunt Alexandra, Miss Maudie, and the other ladies of Maycomb. We also had the unfortunate news of Tom Robinson's death. And we had Scout being a little more accepting of what makes a lady, and her kind of wanting to be one. So we're now moving into chapter 25. Okay. Don't do that, Scout. Set him out on the back steps. Jem, are you crazy? I said set him out on the back steps. Sighing, I scooped up the small creature, placed him on the bottom step, and went back to my cot. September had come, but not a trace of cool weather with it, and we were still sleeping on the back screen porch. Lightning bugs were still about. The night crawlers and flying insects that beat against the screen the summer long had not gone, wherever they go when autumn comes. So it's setting up a little night forest background. Summer times, there's the lightning bugs, which are just the little fireflies in a way. There's different words for them in different areas of the country. So there's fireflies, there's like moths, there's all sorts of bugs that go out at night that you would see when you're camping, or if you just even go outside when it's dark. So we're going to find out what has invaded the house. A roly-poly had found his way inside the house. I reasoned that the tiny varmint had crawled up the steps and under the door. I was putting my book on the floor beside my cot when I saw him. The creatures are no more than an inch long, and when you touch them, they roll themselves into a tight gray ball. So yeah, roly-polies are probably about the size of my pinky, or at least the nail of it. Very, very tiny. I remember myself as a child, I would frequently play with roly-polies. I would always hunt for them. I don't know if you did as well, but they're cute little bugs that are like the armadillos of the insect worlds. I lay on my stomach, reached down, and poked him. He rolled up. Then, feeling safe, I suppose, he slowly unrolled. He traveled a few inches on his 100 legs, and I touched him again. He rolled up. Feeling sleepy, I decided to end things. My hand was going down on him when Jem spoke. She was about to smash the roly-poly when Jem interrupted and said, "Don't do that. Put him outside." Jem was scowling. It was probably a part of the stage he was going through. And what is that stage? It's him growing up. And I wished he would hurry up and get through it. He was certainly never cruel to animals, but I had never known his charity to embrace the insect world. Why couldn't I mash him? I asked. Because they don't bother you, Jem answered in the darkness. He had turned out his reading light. What also is something that doesn't bother people that you should not kill? Perhaps a mockingbird? Reckon you're at the stage now where you don't kill flies and mosquitoes now, I reckon, I said. Let me know when you change your mind. Tell you one thing, though. I ain't gonna sit around and not scratch a red bug. It's like a little tiny bed bug in a way. Dry up, he answered drowsily. Jem was the one who was getting more like a girl every day, not I. Comfortable, I lay on my back and waited for sleep. And while waiting, I thought of Dill. He left us the first of the month with firm assurances that he would return the minute school was out. He guessed his folks had gotten the general idea that he liked to spend his summers in Maycomb. Miss Rachel took us with them in the taxi to Maycomb Junction, and Dill waved to us from the train window until he was out of sight. He was not out of mind. I missed him. The last 2 days of his time with us, Jem had taught him to swim. Taught him to swim? I was wide awake, remembering what Dill had told me. Remember, previous chapter, Jem thought it was completely ridiculous that Dill did not know how to swim and decided, I'm going to teach you. And they went to Barker's Eddy and swam naked, and that is why Scout could not join them. Barker's Eddy is at the end of a dirt road of the Meridian Highway about a mile from town. It is easy to catch a ride down the highway on a cotton wagon or from a passing motorist, and the short walk to the creek is easy. But the prospect of walking all the way back home at dusk when the traffic is light is tiresome, and swimmers are careful not to stay too late. So basically, it's a long walk. No one really wants to stay there that late. So we're going to see what's going to happen. According to Dill, he and Jem had just come to the highway when they saw Atticus driving toward them. He looked like he had not seen them, so they both waved. Atticus finally slowed down when they caught up with him. He said, "You better catch a ride back. I won't be going home for a while." Calpurnia was in the back seat. So, based on what we learned in chapter 24, and since Calpurnia is in the car, we know where Atticus and Calpurnia are going. They are going to go see Helen, Tom Robinson's now widow, to inform her of his death. Jem protested, then pleaded, and Atticus said, "All right, you can come with us if you stay in the car." On the way to Tom Robinson's, Atticus told them what had happened. They turned off the highway, rode slowly by the dump, and past the Yule residence, down the narrow lane to the Negro cabins. Dill said a crowd of black children were playing marbles in Tom's front yard. Atticus parked the car and got out. Calpurnia followed him through the front gate. Dill heard him ask one of the children, "Where's your mother, Sam?" and heard Sam say, "She down at Sis Stevens, Mr. Finch. Want me run fetch her?" Dill said Atticus looked uncertain. Then he said, "Yes," and Sam scampered off. "Go on with your game, boys," Atticus said to the children. So now he's getting ready to break the news. And here are some of Tom and Helen's children playing in the front yard. And he's a little hesitant because he knows they now no longer have a father. A little girl came to the cabin door and stood looking at Atticus. Dill said her hair was a wad of tiny, stiff pigtails, each ending in a bright bow. She grinned from ear to ear and walked towards our father, but she was too small to navigate the steps. Dill said Atticus went to her, took off his hat, and offered her his finger. She grabbed it and he eased her down the steps. Then he gave her to Calpurnia. Sam was trotting behind his mother when they came up. Helen said, "Evening, Mr. Finch. Won't you have a seat?" But she didn't say any more. Neither did Atticus. "Scout," said Dill. "She just fell down in the dirt. Just fell down in the dirt. Like a giant with a big foot just came along and stepped on her. Dill's fat foot hit the ground. Like you'd step on an ant. Dill said Calpurnia and Atticus lifted Helen to her feet and half carried, half walked her to the cabin. They stayed inside a long time, and Atticus came out alone. Stanley. Here is the technical issues cat making an appearance again. Yes. You gonna come up here? Okay. Okay. We are once more graced by his royal presence, Stanley. He probably want something else. Oh, no, never mind. Goodbye, sir. When they drove back by the dump, some of the Yules hollered at him, but Dill didn't catch what they said. Maycomb was interested by the news of Tom's death for perhaps 2 days. 2 days was enough for the information to spread through the county. Did you hear about? No. Well, they say he was running fit to beat lightning. To Maycomb, Tom's death was typical. Typical to cut and run. Typical mentality to have no plan, no thought for the future. Just run blind first chance he saw. Funny thing, Atticus might have gotten him off scot-free. But wait. Hell no. You know how they are. Easy come, easy go. Just shows you that Robinson boy was legally married. They say he kept himself clean, went to church and all that. But when it comes down to the line, the veneer's mighty thin. They always come out in the end. So that's a bunch of gossip that Maycomb is having. Only 2 days is as much attention as his death got. 2 days. And it was all very much, well, that's typical of them. Again, we know the disease of Maycomb is racism. And here it is expressing itself once again. And they're saying, oh, well, you know, he did keep himself nice and he went to church and he was legally married to his wife. But, well, they are what they are, is what a bunch of the Maycomb citizens are saying. A few more details enabling the listener to repeat his version in turn. Then nothing to talk about until the Maycomb Tribune appeared the following Thursday. There was a brief obituary in the colored news, but there was also an editorial. Now, Mr. Underwood, who is in charge of the Maycomb Tribune, he was there the night the group of men, a bunch of the farmers, and remember who was in there? Part of that mob? Walter Cunningham Sr. went to the jailhouse to try and attack Tom Robinson and also potentially injure Atticus. He was there in his office above the newspaper, and he was sitting there with a shotgun in the window, sniper position basically, ready to shoot anyone who tried to start anything with Atticus and Tom Robinson. However, in the next chapter, following the whole ordeal, we learn that Mr. Underwood, deeply racist, does not like anyone who's not white. Very much so. And Aunt Alexandra, when Atticus says that, said, oh, you shouldn't say that in front of Calpurnia. And Atticus says, well, I'm pretty sure she already knows this. So, Mr. Underwood does not like anyone who's not white. But he has apparently written about Tom Robinson's death in his newspaper. A newspaper that would be for white people. So let's see what he has to say. Mr. B.B. Underwood was at his most bitter, and he couldn't have cared less who canceled advertising and subscriptions. But Maycomb didn't play that way. Mr. Underwood could holler till he sweated and write whatever he wanted to. He'd still get his advertisings and subscriptions. If he wanted to make a fool of himself in his paper, that was his business. Remember, that's the way of Maycomb. Even after Atticus had defended Tom Robinson, he was still elected to the legislature. They're very much stuck in this tradition and routine. Mr. Underwood didn't talk about miscarriages of justice. He was writing so children could understand. Mr. Underwood simply figured it was a sin to kill cripples, be they standing, sitting, or escaping. He likened Tom's death to the senseless slaughter of songbirds by hunters and children. And Maycomb thought he was trying to write an editorial poetical enough to be reprinted in the Montgomery Advertiser. So there it is again, a callback to the title. A sin to kill the songbirds. And remember, what was Tom's last name? Robinson. Robin, like a bird, like a songbird. So again, connecting him to the mockingbird. How could this be so, I wondered, as I read Mr. Underwood's editorial. Senseless killing? Tom had been given due process of the law to the day of his death. He had been tried openly and convicted by 12 good men, and true. My father had fought for him all the way. Then Mr. Underwood's meaning became clear. Atticus had used every tool available to free men to save Tom Robinson. But in the secret courts of men's heart, Atticus had no case. Tom was a dead man the minute Mayella Yule opened her mouth and screamed. The name Yule gave me a queasy feeling. Maycomb had lost no time in getting Mr. Yule's view on Tom's death and passing them along through the English channel of gossip, Miss Stephanie Crawford. Miss Stephanie told Aunt Alexandra in Jem's presence, "Oh, Foot, he's old enough to listen," that Mr. Yule said it made one down and about 2 more to go. Jem told me not to be afraid. Mr. Yule was more hot gas than anything. Jem also told me that if I breathed a word to Atticus, if in any way I let Atticus know I knew Jem would personally never speak to me again. Well, that is the end of chapter 25. It's very short, not as drama-filled as the previous chapter, but we do get a lot more information. So, we know that Dill and Jem were with Atticus in the car when Atticus and Calpurnia went to tell Helen the news. We know how Helen reacted, and we know how Maycomb reacted. Maycomb, only 2 days of gossip, but Mr. Underwood is the surprise of the novel, or of this chapter. He is the one who likens the killing of Tom, who was a cripple, because remember his arm was caught in a cotton gin when he was 12, as a sin, like killing a songbird. And we got the very foreboding line from Mr. Yule of 1 down and 2 to go. So we'll have to figure out who those 2 other are. Well, I hope you are having a nice day, that everything's going well, and that you're reading. Hopefully you're keeping your mind off of things. I'm also very happy that my cat did not knock over the camera like last time, so that is always a good news. Well, I will see you next time when we read chapter 26. I hope you have a very nice rest of your day. Bye.